I've seen previously it used to be that they have Google Slides that they keep duplicating for every onboard. And then they will just change a few things here and there. But I feel like it's not really sustainable. Let's say that my mission statement 1 year ago has evolved a little bit. I'm not going to go back and change it. And then those changes are not reflected in all my previous documents. But chances are someone might come across it. And it's very important to be on the same page.
Okay, welcome back. I'm your host Reggie, aka your Chief Financial Coconut. This is my third panel for the day.
I don't know how he's doing it, but he's doing
I
it.
know, man. One more to go, But today, this particular panel, it's of great interest for me because I think my team is kind of at the stage where we do need to improve our management system, right? We are no longer the 5-man cell that started and do the grind. Now we have 10 and more, right? So 10 core people, and then you have like other people that we work with, we push around. So team management, project management, especially for a remote team, is so difficult, right? It has its own challenges. It's not that it's impossible. And that's why I wanted to bring everybody together to talk about it, right? So Haikel, you want to introduce yourself for our audience that somehow never see your last panel?
Oh, they never see ya. You missed the big one. No, my name is Haikel. I work in the private industry as well. I use tech tools to help with project management. And I hope to contribute a little bit more. I also host my own podcast.
Yeah, you want to shout out for your podcast? Actually, I realized you never shout out.
Paisi lah.
Paisi? No, paisi. You can shout out. What's your podcast?
It's called the Ironing Board Podcast. Tackles social issues in Singapore. So if you want to talk about it more, just look it up.
The Ironing Board.
The Ironing Board. Literally,
Okay,
ironing board. Right? I literally put my stuff on the ironing board to record a podcast. Yeah, you look it up.
Yeah, I must keep the ironing board. You hope next time will become very valuable.
I now need to extend the ironing board size, not enough space.
enough. Yes, and we have Anya back on the show. You want to introduce yourself for our audience that don't know you?
Hello, my name is Anya. I'm from Anya Studios. I feel like we're at this stage where entrepreneurship has a lot of people burning out with, lots of systems that don't scale well.
Yeah. Can you elaborate a little bit more on that?
Yeah, so I feel like, we're ready when we have, one new person, 2 new people on the team. We are bringing old systems, where paperwork, Google Sheets and stuff into our work. But at the end of the day, there's a lot of back and forth between copying things, between sending links buried in emails. And also I'm trying to figure out a system that works for the rhythm of the organization, or if you're an entrepreneur with a team, yourself. And I feel like setting up a good tech stack is super important to have a sustainable business that can scale as you grow. So I'm repping the fact that, everybody should have an amazing tech stack in this digital age. And so I help businesses create that for themselves and maybe some automation. But today also, I think I bring my expertise in Notion. I'm Notion certified and I'm a big supporter of Notion. I've been with it for more than 5 years. Yeah, all the way from, I think, their We2 launch. And it's changed my life and it's changed so many people's lives that I've worked with. So I'm excited to chat about what can change, in the tech stack for people and businesses.
And Notion is very expensive. But that's a discussion later.
Compared to what?
Oh yeah, that's a good question,
Yeah,
right?
you do have to make comparison. If you want to say it's expensive, you have to make
I
comparison.
think it's expensive as I scale up. As a small entity that, is not very experienced with the kind of cost of tech, because I think a lot of enterprise, they buy enterprise software, very expensive, right? So when they look at 3 month, $10, okay lah, right? Per user, they don't feel it's as bad, but for a lot of the younger businesses where we start with nothing, you see your tech stack scale, the price just keeps going up. A long time ago, I don't spend much. Now every month is thousands of dollars just on the tech stack, right? And it's crazy.
Have you experienced the AI tax on your tech stack?
No, what is that?
Basically, every tech product now needs to have an AI strategy, right? So every time they incorporate AI into it, the cost of delivering AI services is not cheap. And so they add on a price tag to services. So if you've heard Canva has increased its prices, oh my God, Canva Teams, it's so painful now. Everybody is it's as on par with Adobe, which is, they started off as a competitor.
Yeah.
But these are things that they add on to the original pricing anyway. So it's part of the entire package already.
Yeah, I think it changes. But for example, Notion has Notion AI. So if you want like the whole novelty of being able to ask questions about anything in your knowledge management system, and you have Notion AI answer it for you, you have to pay at least $10 more per seat, or maybe $5 more per seat.
You see?
So that's why lah. Then he say expensive.
Yeah, everything expensive, right? And then we're in media, we try to load up our video quality and all that. Then the whole thing goes into the cloud. The cloud stack also expense, right? So it is expensive, and I think that forms the basis of why we want to do this discussion today, right? Like there's probably two groups of people. One group of people that have already kind of tinkered and want to improve on it, and then there's another group of people that they tinker, it works, but as it scales up, it gets more and more expensive.
How do you manage that?
How do we
right?
kind of manage that? Yeah.
Yeah, I think, the thing about scaling up is people don't realize once you choose a tech stack, it is more and more challenging the more you have things on it.
It's true.
And it's so hard to migrate it that migrating it to something else can be an investment in itself.
It's true. That's why they always give you the $5,000 credit in front. Then they lock you in for 12 months, right? Then as you build everything up on the platform, that's like,
Then if you want to change now, don't
want to shift it. Okay, just make my money.
Yeah. So I think like for organizations who have still not locked down, like maybe they have a Google Drive and they're using like Google Sheets, Google presentations, but it's not really enough, right? When you're doing project management.
In what sense? Can you elaborate? Like, why is it not enough? Like the Google Suite.
So what happens if I have Google products or maybe like, Microsoft Sheet? So I think working with teams, there's a people element to it. So it's like, where is the work being done? Is it done in conversations? Is it done in WhatsApp chats? Is it done on Slack? Is it done in email threads? So where are your files living if you need to go back to it? Do I need to look for, like a needle in a haystack next time? Which is why I feel like, just a Google Drive isn't enough.
Yeah, fair. So in that sense, right, you're thinking of like building knowledge databases, right? Like a wiki or like a mini wiki for your own company, right? And I think that's kind of how a lot of us are building internally, on Notion especially, right? Because I think recently we had a few other discussion around like parental leave lah, all these things like, okay, now we got to give parents more leave. Then what's going to happen when we onboard a part-timer or we onboard like a temp, and in a lot of bigger companies, they have full force department managing the knowledge database, right? Yeah, it's in and out, what to do, but for a lot of smaller companies, we cannot afford that. But I think there's an intermediary where we can kind of build this knowledge database, and how would you kind of get down to it if today we are looking at it? Because I think the simple ones are using a better UI, like going on Slack so that you can separate your personal comms with your work comms, give your people a peace of mind, setting up calendar invites. I think those are simple. People already do it, right? But going into building like a whole database, that is like a beast, How would you do that?
One is building a database is amazing just to have on our side in terms of knowledge and repeatable steps and processes. But the flip side is having a giant database that has no pathway to navigate it. Think of it as you're stuck inside like a labyrinth where you're just going in a maze. You don't know where the knowledge is. I have a feeling that when you onboard someone new and you just say, here, I have everything in this big database that you need to know, they will feel so overwhelmed. They will feel so stuck.
Yeah. They won't read it.
Yeah. So the first step is thinking about what are some repeatable things you're doing for every person that you onboard. It could be like a part-time or like contractual role, or maybe like a role that changes frequently because of the nature of the work. What do they need to know? The basics. So maybe you can curate like little rooms inside the labyrinth.
Okay. And do you then curate those to make them understand each component in smaller pieces so that you'll be able to consume it?
Absolutely. So let's imagine that maybe I have a bubble tea shop. We all love bubble tea.
We all want to have a bubble tea shop. There are a lot of franchise around.
Maybe we'll get a bubble tea sponsor with endless bubble tea. So let's say we have people helping out at the bubble tea shop behind the counter. What do they need to know if they've never handled some of the machines before? Maybe like a machine handling guide, like with a picture of it. And then once you click in, it has like step-by-step instructions that's easy to follow. Or maybe it's like what happens if you're working the register. What needs to be done at the start of the day? What needs to be done at the end of the day to tally the money? What do you absolutely not do with the money? Because I think there are, as much as we would like to categorize and document like what we need to do, we also need to think of what should we not be doing and teach that to some of these people. And you can also have like a welcome to your first day kind of document where it's like, like, here's what you need to know. Here's where everything that you will need on the job. In the next 2 weeks, here's what you can expect. And those are like very like easy things that, probably repeatable, right? Like the pace at which people, expose themselves to the knowledge at work and deepen their information knowledge base will probably be around the same.
Fair.
But what do businesses start with then? What's the starting point before they then go to something
because this
bigger?
is a beast, right? It
Yeah,
never ends. Like, this
exactly.
wiki thing keeps becoming bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. Yeah.
So is
How
there
would
some-
you start?
How would you best start? If you are 2-3 people and then you say, like, okay, at what
I think
point
2 or
then?
3 people
Okay,
don't need lah.
Okay, no, not 2 people. Okay,
but
maybe
like 20.
20 people. Okay.
20 people.
Then at
Then
what
a lot
point?
of your original high-touch management strategy just don't work anymore.
Absolutely. Your time is locked up in people asking questions and you answering them, right? Yeah. So I would say identify the things people keep coming to you for. What is like that knowledge that you have about your business, the way your team works, the way some of the work is being done, that is not really documented and you hold the answer to it. And so I think those should be the first things that need to be documented.
From a personal experience, right, there are a few things. Mission statement, your core ideas, what is the audience they are focused on. Everybody should know, whatever the role that they are in the company, they need to know these things. What is your They all know, right? They all know. Right? We got a wiki, got onboarding doc, got everything, right? We got step by step what to do. Right? So I think those things helps to get everybody up to speed in the shortest time possible. If not, then it will become one of those like buddy system. Last time there's always the buddy system. You have a buddy and then you just learn everything about the buddy. And it's great in a in-person team. But when remote, other buddy, right? the buddy have to lunch together remotely. Hey, let's lunch together and learn. That's not work, right? So you kind of have to shift the whole thing into this type of documents where, okay, this is what we stand for, this is what we think about, these are our KPIs, these are the core, basic things that you need to do. Tuesday, you must come for meeting. Friday is like that. A basic ops just to get someone's so this is what I'm here for. Right, I think that's a great place to begin, And then after that, then the final processes are like, okay, how do you cast? How do you, what type of email templates do you go for? All that. And then they come in a role function, You know
Wow,
what I mean?
you got a lot.
I got it lah. Yeah.
Wow,
Got.
brilliant, man.
Yeah. So it's
And
amazing.
Do you see that this is happening to quite a lot of organizations in terms of structuring themselves?
Absolutely. I've seen previously it used to be that they have Google Slides that they keep duplicating for every onboard, and then they will just change a few things here and there. But I feel like it's not really sustainable. Let's say that my mission statement 1 year ago has evolved a little bit. I'm not going to go back and change it, and then those changes are not reflected in all my previous documents. But chances are someone might come across it, and it's very important to be on the same page. When you're working on something like Notion, for example, it's chances are that we can sync across the different things. So we only need to create one instance of it, but it's not duplicated in multiple places. It's kind of almost like a 1 or 2 pager that's super short, but will ensure that if I want the business to be perceived a certain way, everybody else is able to share and talk about the business in the same way so that there's no space for mistakes or misconceptions, at least at the starting point.
Hey, I hope you're enjoying Wise and Shine so far. I'm your host Reggie, aka your Chief Financial Coconut, and for us to continue to do this show so that you become a tad bit wiser every week, you gotta like, share, subscribe, help us beat the algorithm, but even more importantly, if you can, comment in the comment section below, let us know your thoughts and also some questions that you would love us to answer. Yep, now back to the show. Yeah. Do you all have something like that? Onboarding,
We do.
core values?
For me, what I've seen in the company I work for is that we've put it all in a learning management system. So then there's something that's been built internally, and people actually go through the entire training process. So in the first couple of modules that they actually go through, they will be able to see modules. So they will be able to understand the mission statements, the voice that we are, those kind of stuff, and all that lah.
And do you think it's important? Do you think
I
it
do.
makes huge difference?
I do, especially at the start because it sets the tone. But for me, the platform and that people use also sets the tone in terms of their experience of using it all, right? And then they have to understand, okay, what are the systems that we have in place, where to find stuff and all that. And when it is quite messy, quite chapalang, when a bit of this is on the intranet, something is that on Slack, some of this is on email, some of it if even on Google because another team cannot have it on Slack whatsoever.
I hate those.
So it's a little bit everywhere. So how does that particular person then try to make sure that they are on top of everything is always the challenge, I think, for businesses. And at what point then they will have to consolidate, which I think quite a lot of companies are trying to do. They want to make sure that there's something that serve their needs in terms of managing, like you say, remote teams, different departments, and holding the documents, the templates, and all that.
But you know, right? Because of that, you see a lot of the major enterprise platforms, right? They are all expanding laterally. They're all trying to give you everything, right? Like Slack is giving you more and more stuff. Notion is giving you more and more stuff. Luck is stepping out on their offerings, and even Trello is.
Yes, Trello, yeah.
Everyone is trying to expand laterally such that you use them as a platform, one only platform.
The central one.
Yeah, the central platform. But honestly, it's not good enough because they have their core offerings. That's why we are there, right? Like I use Notion for the wiki, for the dashboard, and for some of these automation integration, I have to go to Zapier. I cannot use Notion to do everything, right? And then from a comms perspective, Notion sucks, like from a chit chat, that type of thing. So I have to use Slack. And then when we kind of integrate that, then there's an automation where we sync up a Notion update to do a prompt on Slack, right? So, and these things, right, just feels like a forever, like, okay, should I change this? Should I do that? There's like a tussle, and everybody's trying to tell you can work here, everything here, but cannot.
Yeah, no,
right?
it's impossible to house everything in one spot to serve the needs that you say, like comms, you say like, okay, Slack maybe wins it a little bit more than everything else.
Yeah, exactly. So how should a team kind of look at this?
Really good question. I think it's important to have like a focused work area where you decide where the chit-chat work is going to happen, and then you decide like where the work is going to happen. And it's very important because, like the work that we do, a lot of times we'll create something. Let's say, for example, we have someone who's working on social media posts or maybe like captions for something. We will have version histories, and it's very important to maintain it because we can see and reuse it somewhere else, maybe, so that the work is not redundant. Or maybe we can see how we've grown, or maybe someone else who's taking over at some point can see, oh, this didn't work, this is what works. And all of that is very important for like building that knowledge base, right? I don't have to sit and say, oh, this didn't work because of this reason, but this worked for this reason. I don't have to slow down and write those like little notes. But what's important is that the work that's being done is documented in a way that's easy, accessible. It has the same place, like the same box I go and put it into. Think of like your digital like workspace as like an IKEA cupboard, the really big one with lots of boxes. So you go social media images there, social media captions the next one. Next to it, we will put like all legal documents. Next to it, we will put all email templates. So you get to decide like where everything gets shelved inside these places, so that anytime anything new is being done, you can just go in and pop in another one. You don't need to sit and organize inside that, that little shelf. But then when you're chit-chatting, it's mostly like, I did this. I'm not sure if I feel good about this. I don't know. What do you think about this? There's a lot of like, what do you think? The kind of a feeling. Or is this a proof boss kind of a thing?
Yeah. That's something where the discussion takes place a bit more, right?
Yeah. And that's all on Slack. Right,
yeah. I mean, for you, it could be Slack. I've seen some people do it on WhatsApp. I've seen people do it on email threads.
I hate it on doing WhatsApp. I hate it even more on email threads. Yeah.
I've seen some people do it on Notion comments.
No, don't do it on Notion comment. That's the worst. Yeah.
Do you get prompts on Notion comments?
We do because you tag everybody.
Okay.
Yeah. But that's the worst.
Yeah. So this is up to you, the boss, to decide.
And the team also gets a feedback.
I guess the team working styles is important. But let's say you're starting ground up. It's likely that when you arrive at the 20-person team, you've led there all the way from a 3-person team.
Fair. The system pretty much is what I want.
Yeah, it's pretty much around, like molded around a lot of your preferences and how you've grown the team culture.
Yeah, fair. So, and I think for me, it started as the baseline is I don't want to mix work comms with personal comms. So Slack is a must. Right, non-negotiable.
So WhatsApp is
WhatsApp is just like we don't work on WhatsApp, but at an event we work on WhatsApp because real time, right? So the bridge is you close, right? But then after that we start to realize that we cannot work on Slack. It's not good enough. So we found Notion, and over time we kind of developed that, and then from there you start to see that there are some technical work functions that they have to go somewhere else. They have to be on Canva. They have to be on Adobe Suites. They have to be in another place. So as a management, right, actually, a lot of those things I don't manage. Like, it's just on the costing front. Of course, I manage the cost, but I'm
It's
not.
the team's
the team
make.
is their playground, right? Because it's probably just three of them using that software to get it done. And I think from building a wiki or building from a management standpoint, right, you need to know what is important to manage and what is not. Because if you have a hand in everything, it's just gonna mess up everything. Right? Yeah.
Do you get the feedback then from your teams in terms of like, hey, Reggie, I need this type of tool to be able to
Yes,
serve.
especially in the highly technical functions, right? So when they are designing certain things, when editing certain things, they're using certain AI to do some of transcription, all these stuff, right? All these things are there, right? And usually I'll ask them, okay, then you tell me what you want, right? You write me a brief, like a deck, okay, what you want, like that. I say, okay, then we decide.
Anya, do bosses usually listen to your stuff?
You have to make a case.
He's a good one lah, but then not.
I do feel like Reggie's a good one. Like, you're like, tell me what you want. A lot of times, because every time you say what you want, you don't know whether it's a real need or whether it's a novelty that's being added, or whether, it's just like a variation that they want to try out. So each time you add something, it does add to the cost of the business. But not just that, it also adds to the confusion later if it's not, decided how it's going to integrate into the main of, like softwares and tools that the team is already using.
Yeah. And I think that gives me a great tangent into when I first started the business. When we were about 5-6 man team, we start to have like other part-timers, so add together still like 10 plus people working on the project, right? Me and my co-founder couldn't decide on the tech stack we want to use, so I insisted on Notion. I think Notion works well for what I want. He insisted on Airtable.
Okay.
Right? So we started having a lot of problems because the team now had to double input. If not, have to create an automation to try to like input here and reflect it there. And it was not helping. And so I think why I brought that story up, because at some point, we need to decide on one operating system. And some things have to go. And that is a negotiation between the different management, that we just have to come together on one, right? But you don't think like, oh, you do yours, I do mine, and then, that's not gonna work.
Yeah, I think the confusion piece is actually quite important, because when you introduce something and then you onboard your team with training, like, okay, this is how this tool is going to work for us and all that. You go through the entire training with the account management team that will serve you and all. Then after that, a year later, at the end of the contract, it didn't work for us. And then all the things that you've been putting in there for the entire year is just then taken out, right? And then it's a transition into another new tool, and you want to carry that information. That's, I think, for employees is a huge pain in the bum lah.
It's
right?
true.
Yeah, I mean, I was wondering whether you've had any experience, Anya, in teams.
I see my guys giggling outside. It's a huge pain in the bum when we switch systems. Don't anyhow switch systems. Yeah.
But are there any pain points that's been conveyed to you by employees in terms of doing this, and how do then management manage this, right?
Well, it's really hard because, say, for example, let's say that the team leader decided to implement Notion for the entire company, right? But then you have people who are like, no, I'm not going to do it on Notion.
There's a learning curve.
I'm on this other platform. I've been doing and managing my work there so far. So it's like, how much are you going to negotiate with this person until like it really needs to become a directive rather than let's all do this together type of thing. And I think the second thing is it's important to build habits together. So when we decide on a platform, it's important to build rituals with your team so that, like not only are you doing the platform together, but the team also builds habits together. And the interesting thing is when you are like, let's say, okay, let's all take this Monday meeting 15 minutes to put in our task here on Notion. You'll actually start seeing when you're doing like a synchronous session, even if it's time boxed and small, you'll start seeing who is experiencing what difficulties. And then actually if you repeat that 2 or 3 times, you will realize whether you can solve it or you can't. And that's the starting point where we should be paying attention to if this is scalable in the long term. Is this something I should be committing to in the long term?
It's almost giving them like an adjustment period to get used to it.
No, it's true. I have a general sense it takes about 3 months. It takes about 3 months to offload somebody from an old system that they're familiar and encourage them, to go. Unless you do a directive lah. Today, this thing shuts. Go here. Then no choice, but people are unhappy. Right? So if you want to be a bit more gradual, 3 months. You encourage them, you set up some regular meetings that have to use this platform.
So you kind of force it on some
in some ways. Yeah. Because when I first started, some people will still want to use on Google Docs. they are familiar. Hey, sorry, we keep naming names. Okay, bye. There's some systems that they are more familiar with, which I understand. We all have systems that we are more familiar with, right? But because the team is built on a different OS, right? And you need to go on the OS. If not, you are running on your own and this is not going to work. So you got to keep motivating them, because I always hear things like, once I'm done, then I will upload. I said, no, I don't want the upload thing because I want real time.
Yeah, you
I want
want it
real
there,
time. I want
there
it there. Then I know, okay, where are you? What's going on? How can I do something for it? So I think that the whole thing took a few months, as we encourage more and more people on the system and impress them. Slowly, you must impress them. So, like this one can do.
Get them excited, get them feel inspired.
I think
that's important. Yeah, I think that internal sell is important, right? I think when I myself as an employee got onboarded to Slack many years ago, I was able to see how useful it was as compared to something else that we were doing previously. I can't even remember now what we're doing. Maybe WhatsApp, right? Yeah. So, but then suddenly I'll be able to say, hey, you can create all these channels, and then you can start adding your own people to these channels and you can create subgroups and all that. And it created some sort of culture. So I think when you are able to create that culture and getting people excited to show them it works to what they would feel happy about in terms of doing, then I think you will get their buy-in eventually.
It's true. And I can add on to that, right? For a long time, I keep telling everybody, be on Notion, use this, right? The resistance is high. And then there was this one meeting, I cannot tahan already, right? I show you how to do it, right? Okay, like that, click here, / put the link in, this. Then I can see the jaw drop. I was like, oh my God, you can do that?
It's magical. Once you see it, you cannot unsee it.
Exactly. So I essentially stole some meeting airtime, but because nobody will mark me on it,
it's
right?
an investment.
Yeah. So I took like 10-20 minutes with, okay, let me show you all like that. And then after that, I can see the buy-in. People start using it more and more, and then they discover new functions. Then I learn from them. Right, so I created my own view because the big dashboard is too laggy, right? Then they pull everything else. Oh my goodness!
And
amazing.
Once you are able to do that, I think you will just see the transformation of your teams in terms of their efficiency, their productivity, and all that, right?
Yeah, obviously the learning curve is there, but they probably will not be operating how they would once they are fully bought in at the start. And then, instead of shaming them, instead of scolding them, I think just encouragement. But then also on the flip side, I heard you say something just now, which is that you can see them work through it and then boom, efficiency. I heard some of the things is like real-time collaboration. If somebody's working on something in a document somewhere that nobody has eyes on, it's not so much that we're micromanaging or we are spying. I think it's more of I
think you want to nip it in the bud, right?
We're all just keyed into what each other is doing.
Yeah. So I just want to add on that, right? Exactly. I am not interested in micromanaging the people. But if you don't give me an overview of what is going on, I cannot help you. Because sometimes I think management, we are managers because in some ways we have a better foresight of things. We have been in the industry for a while. We have a general sense of what it takes. This thing is 3 months, that one is 2 weeks. We have a general sense of it. And as much as we translate it into a wiki and we try to keep telling the people, sometimes it's not in their blood yet. So when you have that oversight, right, then you can go and say, this one still not done, right? We are 3 weeks out, must cepat this thing. Cannot take your time, right? And if they're really swamped with too many things, then you have the opportunity to step in and get it done.
Change the course before it's too late.
Before it's too late.
I think that's really what you want to do. You'll be able to make the changes as when you want to achieve it. Before something really too late happens, then after that you say, alamak, if I had this, then it would have made a lot of difference, right?
Yeah. And that's where the integrated tech stack and those kind of collaborative platforms are so much better than an individual doc, that is tucked into someone's drive, and they just do it on their own. I think there's a lot to unlock there.
Yeah, I call it walking yourself to the updates. Previously, people would bring the updates to you, but I also noticed when, people are working knee deep in something, updates don't come naturally to them because they are so in it. I also don't want to break their flow. So it's an easy way, if I develop a routine as a manager or as a boss, for me, every day, 5 minutes, I will just walk myself through all the team's pages or what they're working on today. I'm cued in. I know whether things are on time or if I need to flag up somebody or something else to, just be like, hey, can we move faster on this? Or this is the deadline? Something like that. So I think it's kind of self-serve.
Yeah, for sure. But I also want to add that it's not just a tech stack problem because because there is also the management, the actual process
I agree.
management layer
I
at the
agree.
bottom. Then you enable it with the tech, right? If you're just thinking, if some tauke thinks like, oh, I got 30 men and now I need a tech stack because I heard it from here, and then they just buy some tech stack, it's gonna kill their process,
no.
right? Yeah.
It's a tool, but
It's a
then
tool.
I mean, if you give someone a hammer to screw in a screwdriver, it's not gonna happen.
Yeah, it's
lah,
not gonna work as well. So in that sense, right? Can you help us expand a little bit on like what are the processes that I need to clean up before I look at using tech to solve it? You know? Yeah.
First thing is how the team communicates. Second thing is how the team sends files and stores files, how you are building a library of your own knowledge. And then I think who reports to who, you obviously already know this, probably if everything is working well.
Yeah. I hope so.
In a remote environment, it becomes even more challenging. And then I think when you get on these tech tools, who is going to help, like be that leader who's going to champion and get everybody on board this tool? Because if I pay for it and then I'll just send the invite to everybody, nobody's
Nobody's
going
gonna use it.
It's going to be chirping crickets.
Yeah, it's just gonna be there. Yes.
So you need somebody to champion this, to make sure that every part of the system is set up, and that's not always the team lead or the boss. It's probably someone dedicated. Like it's likely an internal employee who's quite excited about this, and you just got to identify who that person is and empower them.
They have a BAU, right? Likely. So you, as the leader, you must be real. If you want someone to do the internal system integration because you don't need like an external vendor to do the whole thing, then you must realistically, be a bit more direct with the BAU for that particular person. Because I know for a lot of managers, if you are unfamiliar with these things, you would think like it can be done, right? As with anything, right? When you're unfamiliar, it's like can what? But actually when you're in it, you know that, because you got to standardize the prompts, you got to have a certain process that everybody abides by. You got to even decide what to tag, what's the tagging mechanics, how to decide that this indicates this, right? Like let's say for us, once we are done recording, then we upload the files, then we change the status of the episode. Once you change it, there are certain assumptions that the whole team needs to know. If the status is post, means this is done. But who gets to decide this? So this whole decision mechanics, right, is actually quite complicated, that someone needs to sit down and standardize it. And I think this whole thing, it's exactly what we talk about, where the process needs to be there first before the tech stack enables the expansion of it.
I think some real thought actually has to be put in this. I think that's what's not usually appreciated, right? That you need to put some legwork internally to be able to roll out these processes and decide what these processes are.
Yeah, and it's okay that, before we buy into this tech stack, maybe we have a system and we know what it is, but maybe we're doing it on paper, or maybe we're doing it in, like Excel or Google Sheets, that like that one manager who's going around checking updates. But there is that one person who knows and is trying to keep it together for the team. So it's about identifying what that is and bringing that out so we can set up like the tech stack for that to shine really.
Great. Okay. I think we have a very good discussion. If there's any comments and questions in the segment, let us know. But do you have any particular things you want to ask for your team?
I wanted to ask, how do I then... There are people who are so used to using something else and something new needs to be introduced because we know that the team is growing and we want to manage things differently. Something a bit more central, something that is a bit more visible to management and all that, right? But people love using something that they've used for a long time. It's not so much that I think that they feel that, it's easier for me. It's just something that they feel that they are able to use it well and they actually believe it in it already. But you want to introduce something. How do I then change that perception?
I think first thing is I have to assume that I can't change their mind. As much as we try, they are the only ones who can change their minds. But I can get as close to giving them all of the reasons to change their minds. So I think it's really about understanding their motivations and also giving them agency. I think in this, like the technology rush, we forget that sometimes it feels like we don't have a choice as an employee being onboarded into a new platform. So I think it's just being gentle with them and saying, you know what, it's fine if you take your time. Can we do it your way? But you also do it my way in the beginning. But then once they get more familiar, maybe also doing the double work might tire them out, or maybe they'll start seeing the advantages of being on this. I think it also helps to have the team excited because there's this curve that we call the product innovation curve.
That's okay.
Yeah, there is a curve.
Everything has a curve. Please share with us.
Yeah, so it's called like the product adoption curve. So the first set of people are called the innovators, who are like, oh my God, look at this new thing. I spotted far away. Let me try it. They'll run and try it. Once they get excited and they're like, yeah, I think this is worth recommending, they'll go to the next set of people. And then they're like, look at this. Why don't you try it? I saw this new thing. And then so the second set of people will look at it and then they'll try it. And these are the real influencers. You know, they will start getting the early majority involved. They are the people who have like that little like, you know, microphone and shouting out loud in the organizations that we should be tapping into to get the early majority. Early majority will likely be like, oh yeah, let's try it. Whatever, I don't have anything to lose. So it's a headspace and a mindset. And then there is a late majority who are like, wow, okay, everybody else is using it. Let me use. And then there's a final set, which are called the laggards, all the way at the back, who are like, I really cannot resist anymore. I have to use it.
That's a change management system.
I think that's brilliant, and mapping that out, because I think quite a lot of times in teams or management trying to introduce something new to manage costs and a lot of the other different considerations they have to put in mind, but they just put out a directive, right? Use it.
But from a practical standpoint, hence it's a 3-month cycle, right? There's that, you have that, and then at some point, you need to instill a bit of a stick. It's like, okay, the old system will go redundant in the next 30 days.
But I like your note on influencers, your internal influencers. I think it plays actually a major part because they help you sell it internally, right?
Great. Okay. I think you've shared a lot of good stuff. Continued discussion from the previous podcast that we did on Wise and Shine, right? So, but today is more into it, right? And I love it. In closing, is there any other thing that you want to add for our audience?
I would say enjoy the process. That's probably it.
Yeah, great. It's actually quite fun. Okay, it has its own pain point, but it overall, at the end of the day, when you come out from the other side, you see your business grow, you see the enablement that your team can do, just because you guys put in the hard work to, kind of improve your tech stack and improve your processes. I think a lot of SME bosses need to think about this, right? If you want to break out to the next level.
Agreed.
So with that, thank you for your time. Thank you for joining us at the TFC Business Show. Okay,
Thanks,
with
guys.
that, see you.
See ya. Bye-bye.
Bye.